The banking industry primarily. We realized that in the banking industry, at the entry level, you have more or less a 50-50 employment of women. As you know, there are probably more women that are coming out of universities in Nigeria today than men. But what we've also found is that there are fewer and fewer women at the top. And again, that begs the question, why? And we found that there are various factors that contribute to that. As you know, banking is geographic across the country, and therefore you need people to work in the banks across the country. Women are less mobile typically because of family issues and so on. Women take time off for pregnancy, and there are other peculiar situations that relate only to women in the banking workplace. We would like to address that because, as you know, diversity is important in any environment. The richness of decision making that comes from a diverse rather than a homogeneous group definitely is better. You find that in society you have a 50-50 almost of men and women. We should mirror that even in our workplaces. And basically the responsibility obviously is not just by the corporates, the banks themselves, but by senior women mentoring and helping young women go up. And so the Bankers Committee, it's a developmental issue for us. It's not just a male-female thing. It's a business issue. It's a developmental issue to ensure that women are more economically empowered in decision making.
You set up a committee. Now we know you've set up a committee that would ensure diversity in Nigeria's financial sector. Give us a clearer picture of some of the frameworks we should expect.
In terms of the framework, as you know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Diversity and inclusion is something which happens right across the world, across global organizations, global financial institutions. Most of them have some diversity and inclusion policy, and they come through different means. In some cases, it's just a conscious decision to include more diverse groups of people. In some, it's affirmative action. In some, it's explain why. But for us, we don't believe that it's, we want institutional acceptance of the fact that these issues exist. Two, we want to come up with a framework that will help Nigerian banks actually implement diversity policies. And, as I said, this is something that if you look at global organizations, I mean, I work for Standard Chartered Bank. Standard Chartered Bank has a definite diversity policy. It includes workplace training for women. It includes family-friendly policies as well. It includes structured mentoring in the organization. And that's really what we're looking at here, putting a framework that includes different types of policies that could be adopted by a bank to ensure that indeed it cares for the welfare of its staff, the staff become more productive, and like I said, the diversity and richness of a board, for example, of people of different backgrounds, different genders, definitely is richer than one which is homogeneous.
Now there was talk about the setting up of a fund amongst financial institutions. How much money are we looking at?
Right now, again, the framework for the fund has not yet been fully defined, but then the central bank has set up other funds before. This is less of a fund in terms of quantum of money, but rather some sort of interest drawback system, which will ensure that a form of subsidy in a way, which will ensure that women can borrow at rates that are not so prohibitive to enabling their businesses to grow. So essentially the banks would lend, and the central bank, in essence, that's what it is, the central bank would then in a way subsidize. Similar to the agric fund, where the central bank put in place a structure that enabled agricultural companies to borrow at single digit. So it was something along those lines. It's not so much a fund as in a pool of money, but it is an incentive to banks to want to lend to female-owned and female-run businesses.
What really are the long-term objectives of this committee?
Okay, it's actually, first of all, it's a standing committee of the Bankers Committee, so it's not an ad hoc committee. The long-term objectives are, one, to encourage and ensure that banks have diversity programs that ensure that women are not disadvantaged because of their peculiar situations in going up the ladder, and ensuring that the leadership pyramid becomes less steep and has more women at the top. The second one is to also help, as you know, I mean, we're talking about in Nigeria now, I think, is it 70% of the population earn less than $1 a day? A lot of them are women. A lot of them are women. So part of the objectives is also developmental to ensure that fewer women are in that situation, and they have an opportunity to start a business, to grow a business, and to also help support families and send their children to school. So there's that developmental role. The third one is the fact that we also believe that decision making is richer when you have diversity. And so if we work on women at a lower level and encourage and support them, the likelihood of having more board-ready women will be higher, and therefore you have a richness, you have better corporate governance, better decision making, and altogether greater economic output for the institutions and for society and for the nation as a whole.